Belt pack isn't? It doesn't have one?
No, the belt does. I didn't know about the mic.
Oh. Let me see if I can find
I mean,
it.
it's resting here, but it's not really attached to anything. And I guess I can turn this off. That's on. I think it'll probably stay here.
Yeah, this one has one if you want to use it.
It's just, I thought they had like a little
Try this one.
flip, but it doesn't flip at all.
Try this one. This one should work on the same one. Check.
Okay. Check, 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 check.
I would say if there's one bad spot with those mics is when you're not underneath them. It doesn't come as good from the front of the room without a mic as it does being underneath them.
Okay.
You guys didn't want to record this one, did you?
No.
You did? All right. I'll do it 5 minutes before.
Yeah, that's right.
I already emailed it to Victor for a while.
Okay. So you got it set. Hands liquored up. Fire water. I haven't gotten it. I haven't gotten it. Oh, okay, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
want to go ahead and start recording too, since it's 5 minutes before.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and admit him in.
Hello, Dr. Pimentel.
Hello, how are you?
Good. We will be starting here probably in about 4 minutes or so. So
Okay.
just went ahead and got everything set up and ready to go.
All right. Thank you. It's gone very smoothly so far today. All the Zoom has worked real well.
We hope that continues.
Mhm.
Oh, and by the way, we are recording
Okay.
already. Welcome and thank you to all who are watching via live stream to this open forum with Dr. George Pimentel, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Volunteer State Community College in Gallatin, Tennessee. My name is John McCollum. I'm the Director of Public Relations and Marketing at Jackson State Community College. During the forum, Dr. Pimentel will have the opportunity to provide an overview of his higher education experience, his qualifications, and why he is interested in becoming the next president of Jackson State Community College. Following his remarks, I will ask questions submitted by the faculty, staff, students, and community members. I would now like to invite Dr. Pimentel to give his remarks.
Thank you. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you everyone for submitting questions and giving me the opportunity to speak with you guys today. I am the current Vice President of Academic Affairs at Volunteer State Community College. I have worked in the Tennessee Board of Regents system for the last 26 years. I have held a variety of positions from working as a coordinator in continuing education with Middle Tennessee State University and assistant to the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts. And I am also have been a full-time faculty member, chair of the history department, director of the honors program, interim dean of social science, and currently vice president. Over the few years that I have been vice president, as well as my other work at the college, I have a passion for higher education and the success of students. And I've worked to make sure that these dreams our students have are fulfilled at the variety of locations across Tennessee and our service area and in Jackson, Tennessee. I am very interested in the position. I have looked at and met many people in reference to Jackson State Community College and what they stand for. And I believe that I have the skills and the experience to fit really well into the community and to be a positive influence going forward to make Jackson State one of the premier colleges in Tennessee.
Okay. Our first question comes from Amy West, who is the Director of Human Resources here at Jackson State. Provide an example of when you set expectations and monitored the performance of subordinates. What guidance and direction did you find most effective in improving performance?
When it comes to performance, I think the number one aspect of this is to set your expectations clearly. And so that everyone knows exactly how you will be judged in the event of an evaluation. But also, for me personally, evaluations are opportunities for one-on-one conversations to talk about growth. So one of these areas that I'd like to talk about would probably be in the realm of moving us from in the online environment and making some type of platform to allow our students to have a familiarity with the various classes they were in. And so part of this, I entrusted our director of distributed education, and I set the goals pretty clearly and about what we wanted to accomplish. And I think it was very clear in that that we wanted to make it non-intrusive, but common enough so students would not be having to learn a different model of online learning based on the class that they had. We entrusted this to our instructional designers at the class on campus and allowed faculty mentors that we used on campus to help the designers in what they believed were the best format for students to learn on campus. And part of this evaluation, we set forth very strategic benchmarks, and we evaluated them constantly. So ultimately, in the end, her evaluation was very good. She hit all the benchmarks we had set previous to that. And throughout the entire process, in our final conversation, as part of that yearly evaluation, what we took from that were improvements that could be given to other aspects and in other areas of the college to help improve the student experience.
Okay. Next question is from Sandy Stanfill. She is the director of Henderson County Lexington Center. And she asks, what do you see as the role for satellite campuses?
Satellite campuses are very important in our service areas because it allows students that are living in the 14 county service area that you have an access to education beyond distance learning. And so the site directors at these various locations have a tremendous impact on their local communities as hubs outside the main campus at Jackson. And so I have experience with 3 satellite campuses at Volunteer State, as well as the main campus, and they all serve their communities very specifically. From our perspective, in each community, we'll have special needs. And so we try to gear those satellite campuses to address those special needs in those communities. Also providing gen ed, also experiences from student services. And so the impact on these satellite campuses are extremely important to the overall success of the college. And will continue going forward because students can't always come to the main campus. And so that is going to be an extremely important campuses going forward, especially in reference to the current crisis of COVID-19.
Okay. Next question is from John Brent. He's Jackson State's Director of Financial Aid. He asks, what was the most challenging decision that you were required to make that had a detrimental effect on employees through no fault of your own?
Let's see. I can't really recall a very specific where there was detriment across the board. We had to make some decisions in reference to standardizing pay scales. And so by doing that, what we had to do from the Learning Commons aspect, we had a variety of pay scales going on. And when we did our salary plan, what we tried to do was to cut those down into 3 or 4 different specific levels and not have such a variety that were very clear cut. It explained why someone was in a current position and range of salary. As a result of those decisions we made to fit this into our overall salary plan is that although overall the pay was increased for the top level by a percentage of everything, some student workers and others were lowered slightly over that first implementation period, which was unexpected once we applied it to real people. And so as a result, some people took a bit of a pay cut, $1 an hour or so, which we then rectified in the next semester to bring this in line, because we really didn't want anyone to be harmed by the salary plan adjustments. We were just wanting to make it more specifically tied to job performance, as well as allowing people to understand exactly what the goals were to rise up in the various scales.
Okay. Next, Lindsay Tritt, Jackson State's Director of Community Development and the Foundation. She's asked, Jackson State Community College relies on external support to help aid in student success. I'm curious to know your experience working in fundraising in the past. As president of Jackson State, how do you see yourself involved in fundraising? And what would be your 30-second elevator speech to a donor that is interested in supporting our school?
Okay. As president, foundation work is extremely important. And it is, you are the face of the college. You are going to be out in the community talking to people about the college and their needs and exactly what they are expecting from the college as well, whether it be from a gen ed perspective or workforce development. The foundation office serves a very important role in providing scholarships to our students and other important foundation work that we do across the board, everything from international education opportunities to assisting students with financial crises. And so it is extremely important that the president be very involved across the board in foundation work. My experience in this has been everything from hosting and speaking at breakfasts for various donors. We have, I've spoken to various Chamber of Commerce, various club meetings, anything where my expertise as the current Vice President of Academic Affairs, I could help shed light on our goals and our objectives of the college. And so my 30-second speech would focus on highlighting Jackson State as a premier college in the region and the various services that it can bring to the table, everything from 2+2, transfers to colleges, our certificate programs, health science programs that can lead to immediate work, and also workforce development, which is going to be extremely important moving forward with the economic downturn that we're currently witnessing right now. And so I would explain all of that and then listen to their needs and what they believe will impact their communities, their businesses, and how we can have a partnership in the community need and the foundation work to make all of our citizens successful as part of the Jackson State community.
Okay. Next, Kara Reeves, completion coach here at Jackson State, asks, in what meaningful ways have you encouraged student representation on campus committees and uplifted the voice of students in decisions made on campus?
First of all, student voices are extremely important on all campuses. And so specifically, what I have done in the past, especially when it was going to be something that involved a change in some way, especially from a fee perspective, sometimes we have added fees to students for various labs and things. And I've always reached out to the Student Government Association and I asked them for input. We've also scheduled each semester that I've been with the college forums for the students to ask any questions through the faculty and Student Government Association, and to actually be part of the community at the school. One of the things we've done additionally is we have student representation on many of our committees. And what we're going to do this last few weeks ago, we actually held an SGA forum through Zoom so the students could still have access to senior leadership, ask the questions, and to be part of the discussions of how the school will be moving forward. And so student leadership is extremely important because in some ways it's service learning as they take their place as community leaders after they graduate. So the impact that students can have on the college in general is high and extremely important because we want to provide the experience that they will need to be successful moving forward.
Okay. Karen Perrin, Assistant Professor of Criminal Justice, asks, what would you seek to understand and involve yourself with students? How would you seek to understand and involve yourself with students aside from student government expectations? And please give us some examples.
Okay. Their experience is extremely important. I can't express to you enough when I was teaching that student feedback is critical for the constant improvement of our courses, our delivery systems, our modalities that we use in the classroom, and what their experiences are. I mean, sometimes what can happen is you get so used to the way you're teaching, at least I did, that you have to make sure you take a temperature check to see if how you're explaining something or how the class is organized around a variety of different topics, is it meeting the needs of the students? So stress always feedback from the students. We have at times, yearly, we always provide student evaluations in the easiest form possible for them to provide us clear feedback. We've hosted open forums, like we've said earlier. We've asked them about strategic planning in the cafeteria, where it was, we put paper and questions on the boards in the cafeteria and asked students to comment. Surveying students is important. We need to make sure we're not, surveying them too much to where they don't want to give their honest feedback. But in the past, and one of the decisions we made at the college when we moved to Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, we created a survey and sent it to students so that they had a a part of and could express what they desired as we moved in that direction away from the traditional Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we get some great feedback from that. And I'm very proud of the input from both faculty, students in general to help us make that decision going forward.
Okay. Dr. Liz Mayo, Associate Professor of English, asks, what was the last book that you read?
The last book that I read was Leadership in the Crucible of Work.
Okay. Scott Cohen, Library Director, asks, what is the role of the community college library in contributing to student success?
Well, as a historian, I will say that the library is extremely important, and it has evolved over the years, as most know, from checking out books from a traditional library center, but now electronically. Most of our faculty assign articles and books and be able to access them and to provide students the resources that they need to be successful in the classroom is extremely important. I'll tell you, we've also had some great success with taking groups of students into the library and teaching them about research. And this was provided by the librarians. And across the board, those professors that brought their classes to these sessions within the library, they were more successful overall than those that didn't. And so we have tried to institutionalize that early in the semester and also in seminar form, to allow the library staff to provide their expertise in teaching students exactly how to analyze evidence, what kind of resources are available. And those tools have been extremely important, and we've seen a lot of great success in that across the few years that we've implemented that.
Okay. Another question from John Brandt, the Director of Financial Aid. Regarding allocation of resources, how do you make the difficult decisions at budget time, particularly when facing declining enrollment?
This is always difficult, and even during times of growth, it's difficult. The old adage goes that if it's easy to make decisions when none of the ideas or requests are good. I mean, that's easy, but it's when everyone has a worthy goal. And so how I've always approached it, and being in charge of academic affairs, I have 6 separate divisions sending requests to me: the library, distance education, the Learning Commons, which is tutoring. They all send those requests. And then it's also the requests from the satellite campuses across the board. And one of my jobs currently is to take all of these requests and then put them and rank them in order as I present them to the cabinet. And the number one goal here has always been, what is the biggest impact on our student and our current goals? And so if we are concentrating as a goal to improve a very specific aspect for this year, as part of our strategic planning, our goals are going to be focused on that. For instance, when we went through the push for Tennessee Promise, we had to reevaluate what our goals were going to be. And so we anticipated an influx of students that year. And so we pushed to the front both math and English instructors as a priority for those years. And so it didn't mean that other things weren't important, but we anticipated that increase in demand, and also in looking at the possibility of having increased need and resources when it came to developmental studies or co-requisite remediation. And so we had to adjust that based on what we believe the needs of the students going forward.
Okay. Another question from Sandy Stanfield, the Director of Henderson County Lexington Center. What do you believe should be the ratio of adjunct faculty, and should that depend upon area of discipline?
Well, SAC-COC, our accrediting body, has very clear guidelines on what that ratio should be. And it has always been my desire that we allow the faculty And we need the faculty to be enough of them to where we can also do the work at the college. To give you an example, for a long period of time, we had one professor in the geography department. And it was very difficult for him at the time to be able to do the work that was required of him and service the students as was needed, and also develop new curriculum and work online. And so it was extremely important, even though he didn't teach, certainly not like English, that there's just a lot of different sections of English classes that are needed. The courses he did teach were extremely important to those teacher education. And to find a way in order to allow him to be able to do what was necessary as essentially a department head and teach his classes. So we did have several adjuncts come in to assist him, but we also moved towards wanting to hire another faculty member in the future so that it would allow them to do the work they need to do beyond the classroom. And so the easy answer, if you're looking for a number, it's very difficult for me to say because it depends a lot on demand of courses, number of sections going forward. But it would be a goal of mine to not ever have more than your adjunct faculty should not be teaching double the amount of courses that your full-time faculty are. At Volunteer State, currently we have 189 faculty members teaching a variety of loads based on other duties assigned. And we average about 300 adjuncts per semester. And so I really like that ratio, because although there are obviously more adjuncts and it's by number of people, not necessarily the number of sections that they have, it does provide a solid educational foundation. Our adjuncts are excellent in the classroom as well, but it also allows our faculty to be able to do and serve in the various aspects across the campus that go beyond just in the classroom.
Okay. Another question from Kara Reeves, completion coach. Tell us about any experience you have developing programming designed to close equity gaps, specifically for students of color, but other underrepresented groups as well.
Okay. When we start to look at closing the equity gap, it really goes beyond what's in the classroom. And there's a variety of things that can help. So starting last year, we created opportunities to talk about poverty. And Fall State invested some money in attending training that focused on the language of poverty. And then once we did that, we took that back into Vol State and then invited our faculty and staff to go through seminars on a variety of different topics. And this was important, to me personally, because what it taught me was that my original thinking of when someone is a recipient of a Pell Grant, for instance, as a measure of the poverty level, we assume it's a low-paying job or something like that can be remedied by increasing their salary somewhere. It's not that simple. I think we have a concept of generational poverty in this particular case that can be worked on, if you will, as simple as the language we use when we speak to our students. And that was one of our focuses. What we found out was that there is a language of poverty, and that by adjusting how we approach students, approaching how we talk about various subjects could be extremely important in trying to close that equity gap. And then the other thing that I've really seen that helps all students, whether they be minority students, adult students, students with disabilities, mindset work is extremely important. And there's a variety of aspects that go into that. But the one that I really think is a key to this is that we have to make the learning in the classroom personal. It's that once a student sees what we're teaching as relevant to them, it takes on a different aspect. They learn much better and easier because they can see a value of what we're teaching in the classroom to their own lives. And this works well in this creating this equity gap because it has to be personal. It has to be personalized. Now, it does put a lot more stress on a faculty member. For instance, having to have multiple examples or multiple problems in a math classroom to allow the students to explore what is meaningful for them and therefore hopefully end the equity gap or at least make progress towards it.
Okay. Question from Karen Perrin, Assistant Professor of Criminal Justice. President of Jackson State is expected to be the voice of the institution's mission, values, concerns, and aspirations. What do you think are the key components of successful internal and external communication strategies? How would you prioritize different constituencies?
Well, for me personally, I believe in servant leadership. And what that means to me is I strive to be a great communicator, integrity, and honest collaboration amongst all the constituents. And I believe that if you put people first, that can go a long way in helping to create a common mission, a common goal, common values for the institution, and that we can move forward from that perspective. And when you're in a leadership role such as this, being clear, concise is extremely important in your communication. We need to be able to speak to people at whatever level they are, in whatever way they need to be communicated with. On campus, it might be email, it may be an open forum, it could be Zoom now. And I don't really prioritize different communication in that I believe every constituent needs to be informed. And so it's equally important for faculty to be informed, for staff and professional staff, students, business, community leaders. Everyone needs to be informed of what we're doing. And so it would be a multifaceted approach because we know that, we'll take students, for instance, where I will read an email from my generation, students don't read emails very well. So they do text messaging or they do other forms of social messaging that'll be important. So we have to be adaptive. We have to, and like I said, it has to be clear communication and it has to be constant. And so we have to make sure our message is out there and we don't go long periods of time between messaging because we want them to be informed.
Okay. This question is from Amy West, the Director of Human Resources. Recognizing that we all have some limitations, what characteristics or qualities might hamper or enhance your effectiveness as president? If we learn from our mistakes, can you mention an honest mistake that taught you an important lesson and how you confronted the consequences of that mistake?
Okay. Well, I'll start off by saying that communication is always key. And that's what I have found over the years, whether it's communicating in the classroom or into a broader audience. And one of the most recent failures that I had was during a meeting. It was proposed that we take some action. I won't go into too many of the details, but I expressed a concern that it may not be liked. And it wasn't when it went forward. And I feel like I did not push forward the possibilities and pitfalls that were going strong enough. And so I'm always want to make sure going forward that it is extremely important for us to do something called strategic assumption evaluation. And what I mean by that is everything that we do at the college, every initiative that we do, it has a goal in mind. It's supposed to do X. Like your earlier example, we want to close the achievement gap. What we need to do as an organization is then take that goal and provide a strategic evaluation and have benchmarks that are short-ranged, middle, and long-range that we can evaluate our tactics that are we using against our perceived outcomes. And so it is extremely important that we set this up. And I learned that because we had made assumptions about this particular goal or initiative that simply did not come to pass. And we needed to stop much earlier than we did.
Okay. From Sandy Stanfull, the director of Henderson County Lexington Center, what is the role of community colleges?
Well, it's multifaceted, and I do think that community colleges are unique. Just look at our population. Who are we as community colleges? We are a lot of first-generation students, minority students, students with low income, returning adults, students with disabilities, and other risk factors. We have a mission to our communities that, in my opinion, go well beyond the universities, in that we are looking for ways to educate every person who comes through our door. And so that community aspect of the community college means that we are an integral part of the community, and our mission is such that we don't just teach our subjects, we teach the entire student. And I think that is extremely important. So what are we? We're workforce development. We are assisting in the communities with even teacher education from a perspective of looking at students who may be in the 8th grade or so, helping them on their career paths early rather than late. How can they prepare in high school to be successful in their chosen field later on? By extending that backwards, it really helps our students understand what they're needing to be prepared for. And so, our mission is multifaceted. And I think that we've all seen this in the community. We take all comers, and every student that comes through that door is important. And our relationship with our communities are crucial because we are partners in these communities. We don't have the answers for every question that comes up, but we need community to be part of what we're doing overall, from what programs does a specific county need, or what, it's very common that some of our rural communities would like some kind of health science program, but it's important for us to sit with them and discuss the realities of that and what is actually needed in their community, and that we can work in partnership with a variety of constituencies to be successful.
Okay. From John Brent, Director of Financial Aid, please share an innovation you led which created significant efficiencies and cost savings.
So cost savings in the admissions, I'm sorry.
Well, it was in general here. It didn't really specify. Please share an innovation you led which created significant efficiencies and cost savings.
Okay. One of the things that we're always concerned with in academic affairs is a ratio of classes. And so what does it, and the language we use typically is, what does it take for a class to make? We have 7 students. Can a full-time professor teach that class, or does it need to go to an adjunct? And one of the efficiencies that we started to look at that I think has really helped us across the board is to provide analytics on our classes going backwards. And what I mean by that is typically when you're building a schedule, if I was asked somebody to tighten up a schedule, typically what they'll do is, well, I've got 10 classes, 7 of them are almost full, and 3 of them are not. So I'm going to cut 2 of the ones that are not full. And you think you solve the problem, but typically that had not been the case because there's a variety of things that happen. And so one of the initiatives that we took on was to provide analytics to our department chairs and deans in order to be able to look at not only numbers of students and courses to make this decision, but also timing. When are they? Where do our students need to go? And so by tightening up our schedule, I think we accomplished two things. We didn't have to tell any students that their class didn't make, for one, which is extremely important to students making their schedules and work and those types of things. But it also allowed us to have fuller classes, which then saved money overall to the, rather have 3 full classes than 6 that were only half full.
Okay. Question from Kara Reeves, completion coach. What is your vision for our athletic program, and how would you support students who play sports for JSCC?
Well, sports at the college is extremely important to the overall experience. And so my vision of supporting that will be, once again, to look at the various sports at the college and provide them what they need. My goal would be for us to be the state championship in each and every one of these areas. And I talked about this a little bit this morning. I do believe it's important for us to get the community involved in our sports teams. And so anything that I could do to increase participation, people coming to the various games, is going to be a priority, because these students work very hard, they're talented, they're showcasing their talents, and we are very proud of them as ambassadors to the college. And we would like to have student support and integrate the sports teams well into the overall college experience and the community.
Okay. Question from Karen Perrin, assistant professor of criminal justice. A desire for greater transparency from leaders is something that is frequently heard from the campus community, both faculty and staff. Tell me about a time when you publicly admitted a mistake or failure and the degree to which you were transparent in that disclosure. Is there anything in hindsight that you would have done different?
Sure. Communication is always challenging at every organization. And this goes back 3 or 4 years now, but we had decided collectively to put printing stations in various buildings on the campus, and students would be limited to X amount of copies. And if they went over that limit, they would need to pay for those additional costs. So I met with the deans of academic affairs. They agreed that it was a good idea to do this because the library was seeing a lot of waste in paper. And so they thought that by doing this, making people more, to think about what they're printing and not waste as much paper would be important. And so we went forward with that. Well, from a communication aspect, my failure was it didn't go down to the next level. For whatever reason, when I spoke to the deans, my assumption was they then informed their chairs, and then they informed the faculty. And when they voted yes, that it involved a much broader constituency of the faculty and staff than it really did. What I found out was it really didn't trickle down to everyone that needed to know and also have input into this, down to the various copies and how much a student should have. And so from that incident, what I learned was, yes, have the meeting with the senior leadership. Yes, let them poll their faculty, but also use the other things that are tools for us, whether that be an open forum, whether that be email, whether that be using the SGA and the faculty council, that they too can help get the word out so everyone is informed and everyone clearly knows why we're moving in the direction we are and how we can move together collectively and all be on the same page.
Okay. Another question from John Brent, the Director of Financial Aid. What is the greatest hurdle Jackson State students are facing, excluding the COVID-19 situation, And how will your presidency make a difference in overcoming this hurdle?
Well, I've looked at a variety of different things in my decision to apply for the position, as well as recently in preparing for this. And one of the hurdles that I am seeing, at least from a paper aspect, is that our students are having difficulties hitting the benchmarks of 12, 24, and 36. And so, and then therefore the graduation rates, when I ran the numbers on our graduation rates, they're not as high as I think they could be. And so we're going to need to do an in-depth analysis as to what is the barrier to our students hitting those important benchmarks as part of the funding formula. And also it's their key indicators in their success as they go along. Do we need early interventions? And one of the things that we have implemented at Vol State, which I would really encourage Jackson State to look at, is milestone courses. A lot of times what we do is we look at students fail, but professors are pretty good at being able to figure out what grade you need to make in order to be successful. I'll use health science, for instance. At Vol State, we know that the average GPA for someone getting into one of our health science programs is a 3.85. Those programs are very competitive. And we went backwards and started looking at what key courses indicated whether a student would be successful moving forward. And what we found is anatomy and physiology. And so when a student makes a C in an anatomy and physiology class, even though that's a passing grade, that triggers a failure in a milestone course. So if you're going to be a nurse and you're expecting to be able to get in one of these competitive programs, what we determined is you need to make at least a B to be competitive. And so what that triggered was advising intervention immediately. And that was a big change that we had made from past, because we typically only looked at those students that had failed courses and not those that in their chosen major may have not made the class that made the grade that we had expected them to do. And so what this has done is really led to advising efforts to reach out to these students, talk to them, make sure they're in the right career path, and just talk to them about their performance. And so far it's been very successful and has led to us hitting more benchmarks as a result of some early intervention.
Okay. Another question from John Brent. You will have a key position to fill in the Vice President of Student Services. When you have opportunities to add to your executive team, what are the most significant traits and attributes you look for beyond education and experience?
For me, it's integrity and it's passion for what we do. I mean, we talk about grit with our students quite a bit, that I'd rather have a student in my class that was willing to do all they could to learn, who maybe had a C average, someone who's will just pull out all the stops to do what they need to do to pass the course, than someone that maybe has a very high ACT score who is not as motivated as someone else. And so what I take that to mean is that from my team that we have built and the hires that I've made, whether it be deans, assistant vice president of academic affairs, the focus has been on not only their education, like you said, their experience, but their dedication. How do they view the community college mission? And personally for me, I want to hear a "we can do it" attitude, and they must be clear collaborators, because collaboration will be the key to our success.
Okay, another question from John Brandt. Please share with us what you have learned about our 14 county service area.
Well, quite a bit. You know, when I was going over the various information on the counties, dual enrollment is one of the things I noticed is not consistent across all the counties. Some very low numbers, some very high numbers, which is not completely unusual. But I would like to know what the high school ratios of students being eligible in those various counties. All the counties, when I looked at the unemployment rates, there were a couple of counties that had very high unemployment rates. And so, or at least out of range of what the typical Tennessee rate was, which is about 3.1 unemployment. And so with those more economically depressed counties, we need to get in there, find out how we can help and help those students living in those counties and provide them the education we need. And so, it starts with dual enrollment. I think it's from some of our rural counties, providing them the courses they need to be successful, which could also lead to possibility of partnering with various communities to provide what I would call Zoom hubs. Last year, Ball State recognized that some of our rural counties, although they had a desire to come to campus online, they weren't able to, either at home, they didn't have the bandwidth that they needed to take an online course and be successful, or they simply just didn't have the technology. So we were awarded a grant in which we put Zoom classrooms in 6 different cities across our service area that were at their chamber of commerce or in their courthouses in some location. In a couple instances, we put them in high schools to allow those students in those high schools to have the technology they needed to participate in some of our dual enrollment and online courses. And we're even working on right now to offer these courses in the evening for adult students wanting to continue their education. So we clearly recognize that part of the rural county issue is that access to reliable technology. And so we worked hard through this grant to take the technology to them, so it made it easier for them to participate.
Okay. Another question from John Brent. What is it about Jackson State in West Tennessee that draws you and your family to relocate and assume the presidency of Jackson State?
Well, for me personally, I'm familiar with the area, and I know the wonderful faculty and staff, and I know many people at the school. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I'm really excited about how we can grow Jackson State. And I think it can become not only the premier community college in that area, but I have aspirations of winning the Aspen Prize, a national award for community colleges. And I think that we can strive to hit that mark, and we will make it. On a personal note, my wife is originally from Memphis, and she has family in Arkansas. We drive through Jackson quite a bit. In fact, I know for a fact, because she has family in Bartlett, Tennessee, that there's a Belk's in Jackson. There's not one in Bartlett. So we have to go to Jackson to go to the Belk store. And so I've been there several times. I think it's a wonderful community, and I'm looking forward to being there more often.
Okay. One final question from John Brandt. Beyond education and experience, what innate attributes do you possess that strengthen your candidacy for president of Jackson State Community College?
For me, I think it boils down to one attribute, and that is I can't settle for status quo. And that if I was to take on this leadership role, we would have to put in key benchmarks in order to strive. I just don't give up. I believe failure can be a great teacher, but we will never give up. And for me, this idea of constant improvement, whether personal, educationally, it's been something that has been part of me since my time in the military, is that, we just don't give up. We may have to back up and redo what we need to do to approach a problem from a different direction, but we are never going to give up or basically say we can't do that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Pimentel, for your time here in this open forum, and also with all the time you spent with all the groups today. Sure do appreciate it. And for all of those listening, we encourage each and every one of you to participate in an online survey. The deadline to complete the survey for all 3 finalists will be 4:30 on Friday, May 15th. The survey is located on the TBR website under the President and Executive searches. Thank you, Dr. Pimentel, and thank you, audience, for watching today's forum. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.